I was going to say, what do you think of Ivanova?
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, how can you not?
They do have a fabulous hair salon somewhere on that station, because that blowout was something.
Yes. Well, I imagine, she had like a ponytail braid, which, will leave your hair very, very wavy when you take it down.
Okay, so maybe that's the... And then there's Talia, who just looks stunning in this very, kind of femme fatale, kind of way that's really quite...
She is, but she also gives, 90s business lesbian.
Right, that's what I was going to say. I forgot exactly how homoerotic the introduction of these two characters was.
This is about something. The future. Mysteries.
Prophecy.
Faith. Struggle. Tragedy. Triumph. Purpose. Justice. War. Peace.
Resistance.
Alliance.
Friendship. Family.
Story.
Hi, friends.
Salutations.
And welcome.
This is 9 to 5. I'm Sara Ezzat. I make the Fat Culture Critic videos on YouTube.
I'm Ren the Barbarian. I also make videos on YouTube.
And I'm Zylla Black, and I also make videos on YouTube under the channel name Zyllas Athenaeum.
And we are here today to talk about Midnight on the Firing Line, the first proper episode, Season 1, Episode 1, of Babylon 5.
The last best hope for peace.
Yes, that's going to be a problem, isn't it?
We get our first monologue. And we get what we've been waiting for, the introduction of Susan Ivanova. And also Veer. And also Talia Winters.
I realized that, growing up, I was a Atlantis the Lost Empire bisexual, and I never realized, and I realized recently, looking at the cast list, I was like, oh my god, Helga the evil hot bad lady is voiced by the same actress who plays Susan Ivanova. So it felt like a full circle moment there.
Claudia Christensen, yeah. Midnight on the Firing Line was written by J. Michael Straczynski and directed by Richard Compton. We open with an attack on the Centauri colony Ragesh 3 by unknown aggressors. On Babylon 5, the first officer, Susan Ivanova, is looking for Commander Sinclair. News has reached the station of the colony's attack. The ambassadors convene to offer their sympathies to Londo. Even G'Kar seems surprised by the attack. The council decides to consult their governments and then have an emergency session with the non-aligned worlds to address the situation. Meanwhile, Garibaldi is investigating raider activity. Someone is hitting a lot of ships with a lot of weaponry, and this is setting off his "something is up" alarm. Also, there is a new telepath aboard, Talia Winters, and she is trying to check in with Ivanova, but Susan is kind of giving her the brush off. Speaking of new arrivals, Londo's new assistant Veer has word from the Centauri homeworld. There's video of the attack, and it shows Narn ships as the aggressor. Enraged, Londo confronts G'Kar, who claims he's just heard, but he defends the attack as merely reclaiming territory after the centuries-long Centauri occupation of Narn territory. Later, Londo confides in Sinclair about his own nephew being one of the colonists. He goes on to describe a dream he's had of his own death, that he will die an old man strangling another man to death. And that man is G'Kar. Someday they will kill each other. He's certain. And if his nephew is dead, he will make sure there is war, because blood cries out for blood. Sinclair visits Ambassador Kosh and invites him to the emergency session. Kosh agrees, but he also says of both the Narn and the Centauri that they are a dying race and should be left to die. Back with Londo, a very drunk Londo, who tells Veer he's heard from his government and they have decided to do nothing. They are not going to fight for Ragesh 3. Londo is pissed, and he decides he's not going to tell the emergency session what the government said, because if the other worlds act, then the Centauri will have to. Sinclair is in the garden having a conversation with G'Kar, who says that Earth owes the Narn after they helped Earth with the Minbari War. But Sinclair rejects this. After all the Narn did was sell weapons. and everyone knows that the Narn will sell to anyone who can buy. Garibaldi, meanwhile, has been investigating the raiders, and he thinks he knows their next target. And time is running out because the target isn't just cargo, it's refugees. Sinclair receives a briefing from the Earth government. They want to stay neutral. It's a messy situation, and among other issues, it's actually election day for Earth Alliance. Susan enters as Sinclair's briefing finishes. She's here to inform him that Garibaldi is about to head out after the raiders. Sinclair decides to take Garibaldi's place on the raid, so Susan can attend the emergency session in his place. And she knows nothing about any instructions from Earth. Right? Then hear a thing? At the session, G'Kar exposes Londo's live emission, and he shows video of Londo's nephew claiming to speak for the colony and saying that they asked for the Narn to come, that they are happy to be ruled by Narn, and it seems that there is nothing anyone can do. On his mission, Sinclair defeats the raiders and then goes in search of their command and control ship. Back on Babylon 5, Londo is enraged, and worse, desperate. He assembles a gun in his quarters and goes in search of G'Kar. However, along the way, he accidentally bumps into Talia, who picks up his surface thoughts of murder, and alerts Garibaldi, who intercepts Londo in time. Back from his mission, Sinclair confronts G'Kar with his findings from the raider CNC. A Narn advisor there to accompany weapons the Narn sold to the raiders. Oh, and some comm recordings about the Ragesh 3 attack. Withdraw from the colony, or the council will hear all of it. And with that, this particular crisis is averted, and before the polls have even closed on election day. Later, Susan is unwinding at the bar when Talia approaches her. She feels they got off on the wrong foot, and wonders is it her. Susan gives some exposition that her problem is not with Talia, but with the Psy-Corps, the organization that regulates telepaths. Susan's mother was a latent telepath, and when her identity was revealed, she was given a choice. Join the Corps, go to prison, or the so-called sleeper drugs to repress her ability. She opted for the sleepers, which made her so miserable she eventually killed herself. And so Susan may not dislike Talia as a person, but Talia is Psy-Corps. And Susan has very, very good reason to want nothing to do with the Corps. Elsewhere in his quarters, Sinclair watches the election results come in. It's a win for Santiago and his Vice President Clark. And so ends a day on Babylon 5. So, initial thoughts?
It's a interesting episode because it's not, if you haven't seen The Gathering, which is the pilot, it's an interesting comparison to the first episode of Deep Space Nine, Emissary, because Emissary it's almost like playing a tutorial level of a video game before you start the video game proper, because it shows you all the characters and tells you this faction was fighting this faction, but now they're not, and blah blah blah. Whereas this episode just throws you right into all the politics of this universe, and you just kind of have to try and follow along. It moves very fast, but I don't feel like it's too complicated that a newbie such as myself couldn't follow along.
Yeah, I think the introduction of Ivanova actually really helps because she's relatively new as well, and so even though she clearly has met everybody before, she's still consulting Garibaldi on where to find her boss. She's still getting used to how things work around here, and that gives us a way to sort of view stuff. And similarly, with the introduction of Veer, we have a foil for Londo to expose all of the background stuff that he's not going to say in council to. What I find especially interesting is I watched this well over a decade ago, and I have absolutely no memory of what Earth politics are doing during this time. But the intertwining of the Earth presidential election and the very subtle implications, really, about what their politics actually are was kind of fascinating. It's clearly our characters have strong political opinions. They're all going to vote. They all talk about it. It even seems like Ivanova and Sinclair are both quite disappointed in the results. But they don't talk about why. at all. Well, except for the throwaway chin thing.
Yeah. Who put this politics in my sci-fi? J. Michael Straczynski.
What? Political science fiction? Are you serious?
Actually, I thought it was really interesting. We did see a picture of the two presidential candidates side by side, and the incumbent was an old white man, and the challenger was a young, probably still white woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that the incumbent, though, is his name Santiago.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he's mixed, I don't know.
We are a couple hundred years in the future, so
Who knows? Who knows what white even means in a world with aliens?
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's only a metaphor.
We do know that they are definitely interested in focusing on Earth first. I'm not
Earth
sure.
for Earthlings.
Earth for Earth, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's always...
It's always great for everybody.
Uh-huh.
That sort of like
Doesn't have
thing.
any shades of...
The other thing I was thinking about was like in terms of like exposition stuff, like Garibaldi and Londo sparring about the past of the Centauri, I thought was actually really interesting as a way to sort of introduce the politics and the history there, because like they talk about the Minbari War, they talk about the Centauri's occupation of the Narn space and the fall from grace that happened like before humans even met them, and like they make a point of saying, okay, yeah, you look like us, but you're not genetically related.
There is a lot of exposition but it doesn't feel like you're being given a lot of exposition.
It's very skillfully done.
Yeah, the comment that they made at the beginning when Garibaldi and Londo were talking, and Garibaldi saying, like, yeah, you lied to us and said that humans were descendants of Centauri. It was like, well, can we go back to that? Like, what?
Political error. What do you want here? Open my veins.
Centauri don't have anything important in their wrists.
Yeah.
Yes, I know that. You think I would offer you something important?
I think the thing about this episode that I that really sticks with me is they sprinkle in a lot of important setup stuff, but more than anything, we get a really clear idea of who our characters are and their relations. Like the setup between Londo and Jakar above everything else, like just the sparks between those two, and the levels, and then Susan, we get so much about her, both her professionalism.
Speaking of sparks,
yeah,
get out the fan.
And we don't get a huge amount about Sinclair as a character, but we do get, there are some hints, and him trying to, he's clearly a good diplomat and playing the game, and we get a sense of the position he's in with so much oversight from Earth, and Garibaldi, apart from what feels a bit too much like sexual harassment.
Yeah. Show you my favorite thing. Well, my second favorite thing.
Yeah. For backstage stuff, the actor was actually the two actors were married to each other.
Okay.
So, and there's a sense that perhaps JMS was letting them play a little, but since to us these are two strangers.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even established that they have this preconceived dynamic, like they've known each other for a long time, because they just met, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you want to go back to my quarters? I'll show you my security officer's log.
is the new I'll show you my etchings, I'll show you my Daffy Duck cartoons. I mean, I do think the payoff of the Daffy Duck is like it's amusing, and I love the sort of Delen's complete confusion at it, but also
Yeah, the setup is not good, but I do love Delenn watching Daffy Duck. That is pretty great.
with the popcorn.
Like, I don't know what this Earth food is, and I don't know what this Earth humor is, but it is kind of funny.
I'm learning about humans. Garibaldi is an interesting character, but let's start with our new characters. So I know you want to talk about him. Let's talk about Vir Koto.
Oh, Vir, poor.
Why is Londo
what a
so
pawn,
mean
Vir.
to him? Like, why are you just pushing your assistant out of the way for no reason?
And like, did you see poor Vir's reaction when Londo was drunk and went to throw the bottle? Vir's like, no, don't. Like, this has happened before. Oh.
It's just, this is great to be your first day in a new job, and this is the guy. This is how your boss is treating you.
They have a dynamic very similar to Quark and another character who I don't think we've met yet in DS9.
I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah.
It will turn out that shy and unassuming little Vir has a backbone in him. It's just not evident yet.
Well, good.
By the way, the actor is Stephen First, who sadly died in June 16th, 2017. That's recent, but yes, we've lost a lot of people who were on this show. But yeah, he is delightful. I think he hits the ground running with this character that is just like intense vulnerability without being like, you could say he's cringe, but it's like it's just endearing for the most part, you know. We're going to go on a journey with our Vir, but yeah, he just your heart just take him into your heart immediately. Just this darling, awkward little sweetheart
who is taking his job very seriously and actually doing a really good job.
Well, it's good to know that he does, get a backbone eventually, because it's like, I just wanted to, like, take him by the shoulders and be like, don't let him push you around like that! Stand up for yourself, goddammit!
Yeah, trial by fire, unfortunately.
But I think the way that Londo treats him also gives us some insight pretty quickly into Centauri society. You know, we're already seeing the hierarchical nature of it. Also, like the way that they are quick to dismiss the Ragesh 3. The government is just not going to spend resources on it.
Yeah, this has always been one of those places where it reminds me so strongly of Rome more than anything. Is, this idea that yes, farmers and agricultural stuff is the foundation of our economy, blah, 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 blah. But if peasants are going to die, that's just not the same thing as senators being in trouble. And all Londo is caring about is Karn, his nephew, whom he went out of his way to get a good, safe position on a good, safe world. A prestigious position. He's the head there.
He is a fortunate son.
He was not necessarily a researcher before this point. He's head researcher.
He is a fortunate son.
That's how Centauri works. The Rome parallels and also the Imperial France, Rococo era parallels too. The dismissal of the peasantry until they take your head.
Gracchi brothers forever. Anyway.
Yeah. I will say that, like, I wasn't completely satisfied with, like, the resolution. Like, I thought it was a really great twist when they said, like, oh, we actually invited the Narns here because our government wasn't taking care of us, so we decided to join up with the enemy. I was like, whoa, that's insane. How are we going to get out of this one? And then they were like, actually untwist, it was a lie and the Narns did attack. And I was like, oh. Well, that's kind of disappointing.
Oh, that's interesting because I was so very shocked that anyone would take that video seriously, where you can see him constantly like looking down and like shaking in the video.
Oh yeah, no, it was definitely a hostage situation. But like, what if it had been real?
Yeah, that could have been very interesting, actually.
That would have had major implications, and then it kind of like it just felt like kind of like, I don't know. It felt like the easier route.
I think it's because this is sort of, we're doing a dry run.
Yeah.
We're this is setting up political situations, but there's a lot of introduction to be set up before the bulk of the plot gets going. And so, yeah, we have this kind of dry run of a conflict between these two that we narrowly pull back from, and that's a lot of diplomacy is pulling things back from the brink of disaster. Yep. Which is why you're supposed to have people who are skilled at it in those jobs.
And for all that Jakar at this point looks
and also
like
in the show
the villain, he is actually an incredibly skilled diplomat. Londo, not so much.
Mm.
Although he is very charming and gets silver-tongued, we'll call it.
Yeah.
He's actually not that good a diplomat because he doesn't believe in his job.
Yeah, to me, Londo seems like the kind of guy who got his position through connections, not because through, like, you know, skill and years of experience and proving himself.
Yeah. But Jakar, for all his machinations and such, is actually a perfectly good diplomat. He's very good at responding to situations without resorting to violence the way Londo does, for all that it's clear that he is ready to fight. And in some ways, he's a much better diplomat than Sinclair is. Sinclair jumps at the chance to get in that fighter jet. Sorry,
well,
X-Wing, sorry, whatever they're called.
Yeah, true. And it also, partly, I think, because it gets him out of the position that he doesn't want to be in. But I think that is something that we should be tracking going forward, is
just Ivanova just straight up asking him, so your dad was a pilot too.
Mm.
Oh yes, my whole family going back generations were fighter pilots.
I think that's an interesting contrast between him and Sisko. Sisko is a diplomat first and a soldier second. Sinclair is a soldier first and a diplomat second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is this setup of Babylon 5 is it's run by the military, even though it is a diplomatic thing. So we have this, in many ways, a political position that is being held by military personnel who are both doing the diplomacy stuff and also running the station, although a lot of the station running is done by Susan, who is our second new character that I adore. Susan.
Yes.
I mean, it's hard not to. She's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that we get Susan in full military mode for most of the episode, and then we get to see off-duty Susan being a bit softer, and you know, she's gone to the hair salon and all.
Yeah, she's layered.
She's layered. Layered and blown out.
Yeah. And it's like, it doesn't feel like male gazy or, you know, like male fantasy-ish, like in the way that like Tasha Yar from TNG does. Like, like Tasha Yar, you know, it's like she's got like the short hair and she's a fighter and everything, and it's like, you know, you get the sense that like this is her choice, but then also she's like, oh, I wish I was feminine, I wish I wore pretty dresses, and I'm like, do you wish that, or are the male writers who are writing you wish that?
Or the comparison that to our introduction to Kira, We got Kira as this awesome badass and clearly on her own terms and everything. But we still had to have a creepy man objectify her to like kind of let the audience know it was okay for them to objectify her. Susan, we don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, her uniform is a sensible. Apparently, these are not the most comfortable of costumes, but it does look like a sensible uniform and not a bodysuit.
And it looks like everybody else's uniform, which helps.
Yes.
It's not gendered, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even when she's out of uniform, she dresses more like, I don't know, me than she does like some femme fatale.
She dresses like a bisexual.
She is dressed feminine, but she's not dressed for the male gaze. You know, it's like her clothes aren't skin tight. She's not showing off a bunch of skin, which is fine if that's what you like. But it's like she looks like she's just hanging out in something that's comfortable, but still cute.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Talia, as we've already discussed, does kind of get objectified by the whole thing with the Garibaldi. And she's much more hyper femme. In presentation. It's a very it is 90s as you said, but also I feel like there's a definite influence from the 40s, especially in the
way her hair is in particular.
I was thinking of her suit dress.
She looks like she walked out of a eugenics program, and I think that's intentional given the way that they discuss the psionic core.
The Psi Core? Mm-hmm.
Psi Core, yeah. She doesn't actually look evil or anything. She's clearly not presenting as evil, and like there's nothing about her character that says that. But if you were to like picture the perfect German woman in the late 1930s, would it not look like that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Her clothes kind of remind me of like the Empire uniforms from Star Wars, but also I don't know if either of you are like active on TikTok, but like a while back there was this trend called office siren, where it's like you're wearing businessy clothes, but it's like not clothes that are like appropriate for like an office, like how you would dress for like going to the office in the world of porn, you know, like super short mini skirts and like low cut tops, which she's not wearing, but still like just like the bespoke way her suit fits her and everything. It looks very office siren-y to me. So yeah, like a mix of that and the Empire from Star Wars.
Yeah, which is also tends to pull inspiration from the 40s. And very uniform cuts. I think the thing is, like, it's very buttoned up and covered up completely, including gloves and everything. And yet, it's in such a way that it is extremely flattering to her figure.
I mean, 7 of 9 was all covered up too.
Yes, and it's not that. That is, it's subtler.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think we will have more to talk about the Psi Corps when we have meet more people from the Psi Corps.
Yeah, that's the part where I start remembering some things about Earth politics, but that's not for a while yet.
Yeah,
but yeah, like this introduction to the Psi Corps in this very like she was raised by the Psi Corps and like she has clearly like lives and breathes the Psi Corps in a way that even Lyta, of course, in a way that Lyta never did. Lyta seemed very normal, almost, except that she took her job very seriously.
Like she didn't drink the Kool-Aid,
right? But Talia is very.
We will get pushback. It's pronounced Lita.
Lita. Thank you,
yeah.
Lita.
To me, in this episode, Talia is more reminiscent of Aaron Sun in like the first episode of Farscape, where she, she's still a member of the Peacekeepers and she fully believes in their mission.
Clearly, Talia has a good heart and she's interested in keeping the peace. She's she's interested in her job, she's interested in following the rules without getting in anybody's way.
She's trying to befriend Susan.
Yeah.
And she's also like, hey, did I do something wrong that I don't know about? Like, that's her first response. Is like, not, this woman is extremely rude, and not, I should give up on this, but like, oh, hey, did I do something to offend you? Because I don't want to.
Mm-hmm. There's another design influence we should talk about, the logo for the Psychor. Because that is pulling some serious Soviet imagery.
Yes.
What is that in Greek?
It's
An epsilon?
No, it's a
Epsilon?
C.
So what?
C. Psi.
I was thinking pi. Duh.
Yeah, no, the curve with a line straight down the middle is a ps sound. Psi, or so that is straight up the Greek letter that is the beginning of all of our words that start with psi: psychology, psychometrics, psychoanalytics, psychokinetics, psychopharmacology. That all comes from psi.
I read somewhere that that apparently, like, during a take where she was first introducing herself, she said she meant to say what was it? What was the word?
Psychor.
No. The psychic. Yeah, she was saying psychic, and she accidentally said, "I'm the station psychopath," and apparently everybody busted out into giggles.
So the fun thing about all that is it comes from the Greek word psyche, which means soul.
Mm-hmm.
Also, fun fact, same word, butterfly.
I always loved the myth of Psyche and Cupid.
Yeah.
I don't think Ivanova is going to play the role of Cupid, no matter how much Talia wants it.
But even with the letter in that, I still like. You see the sort of Soviet kind of.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Like it's all matte, straight edge, repeating patterns. You know, like the chevrons, the kind of flat colors, Soviet realist style.
Yeah, it's very, very Russian-y. Which, we're fresh off the Cold War, which,
Yes, we are.
Clearly had an inspiration for the show.
Mm-hmm. And also, J. Michael Straczynski is Russian.
Yeah.
Like American, but he's
of Russian descent. I do think, again, like, bringing the parallels of the two shows into this, I do think it's interesting how in Deep Space Nine we have, recently closed conflict, sort of, between two cultures, and then our Earth POV is outside of that, kind of trying to facilitate peace between that, whereas in this show we have Earth being a direct part of the conflict, that being between the Earth and Minbari War.
Yeah, we've got two parallel sort of recovering conflicts. Recent wars. We've got the Earth and the Minbari who are trying to find a way to befriend, and we've got the Centauri and the Narn who have not stopped conflicting. They're very much in the peace is a word for the time in between wars thing. And I was thinking of the cycles of violence and stuff. I was thinking of many things. The Ragesh 3 attack, one of which was, I think, there's some interesting parallels with past prologue, and where we had the Konmar and the freedom fighter terrorist who couldn't put down the fight after victory. And we have, and I think that's really parallels the Narn here, who they've driven the Centauri off their world, but now they're that isn't enough.
Yeah, now they're going after their defenseless colonies.
Mm-hmm. Now, Jakar has dreams of carving bones into the flutes for children.
I did think that was amusingly poetic.
Mm. He's a good writer.
Mm-hmm.
He certainly is. It's one of those conflicts that feels very, deeply ingrained. Like it constantly reminds me of conflict in the Middle East.
Oh yeah.
Like it cannot.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to get to that.
Yes, well, when the two of us are talking about colonialism, it's gonna come up.
I was doing parallels with the other show, and then and then all the real life stuff. Yeah.
But like just to, as a note, like when we're talking about the context of shows of when this show is made is like, of course, we're coming off the Cold War, and that's influencing the Earth Minbari tensions and
Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
The Balkan Wars. We even have Mira Furlan is Croatian.
And at the same time, the conflict in the Middle East has always certainly since the formation of the modern state of Israel has been peace is the time between wars situation, conflict with no upsides in a lot of ways, and everybody having a hand in it.
Yeah, and I was thinking the way that this is presented to us, we are presented with the Narn as the aggressors because we don't see the previous occupation stuff. Mm-hmm. We don't see that all the context for the Narn. So we are just presented with an apparently unprovoked attack on, vulnerable position that makes no. I was thinking of October 7th.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's an attack on civilians mm-hmm. that, when isolated, seems senseless and violent for no good reason, and then in a wider context, you're like,
feels like it was always going to happen.
Less here.
And obviously, we condemn the attack on Ragesh 3. We condemn the attacks of October 7th.
That does not make the Centauri blameless.
No, but I think...
Especially when they're clearly living on their old glory still.
Mm-hmm. 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 But it is an interesting choice to bring us in sympathy with the Centauri. In sympathy, again, with the race that looks like us, even though we are told that they are not like us.
And we are told liars, and that they're occupiers, that they've committed genocide.
Mm-hmm. And we are told that the Narn were occupied. We are told that they suffered. But we are shown them as aggressors. I think Straczynski is really setting some interesting stuff up there. But it also, it does make me think of the way that stories were told. The moments like October 7th or a lot of incidents in the Intifada would be told in a vacuum and as individual events and not as part of a thing. Even when people who are critical of Israel will sometimes will take Israel out of context and treat it as it being the unique aggressor
which is anti-Semitic, by the way.
Yeah, and even some people do it deliberately anti-Semitic, and I think some people do it thoughtlessly. You can't really
the cultural narrative is anti-Semitic deeply and Islamophobic at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's very white supremacist, and it doesn't have regard for people from that part of the world or people with religions other than Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Things didn't start on October 7th, but they also didn't start in 1948. You know, like, I think one of the most oddly telling things about the world that we are in right now is the fact that the Secretary of War has a tattoo that says Deus Vult.
For our listeners,
That
the face that I made, I don't know if one of y'all wants to describe it.
because like the driving force behind a lot of the conflict is Christian Zionists, not Jewish Zionists. Not that to make anybody innocent in this, but it's, you know, there's, because some people have an idea of a holy war, and Deus Vult means God wills it, and it goes back to the Crusades. This is a cycle of violence that has been going on in the region since the Crusades. And I think I was thinking, reflecting on this, because as an Egyptian, you know, I know this history, and I know of Salahuddin and the, you know, the rise of the Mamluks, and all that, which is, and the Europeans were kind of the aggressors. Were very much the aggressors in the initial thing. I mean, that yes, there were the Seljuk Turks were attacking Constantinople first, but it was the Franks decided to invade all of the Middle East in response, and that the response to that invasion and to those wars was to turn what had been a very peaceful and cultural focused, you know, the caliphate that was very interested in, you know, literature and making gardens and all the you know, what had been the Islamic Golden Age.
History, including a lot of those texts that we think of as classical.
And the response to the invasion was to become much more militant. It became this perpetual cycle between Europe and the Middle East, between the Christians and the Muslims. And in many ways, the Jewish folks have always been kind of part, you know, a sort of grist in that mill between the two. Yeah, I was just thinking of that in the way that, like, the story, at least I believe the story that Jakar has in his head, the narrative of his people having been, you know, peaceful and good, but they have, their response to being invaded is vengeance, is to become violent and become like the aggressors. And that's not a choice that all societies make. Oppressors are always afraid that the people that they oppress are going to rise up and be violent and take revenge. But most don't. The case of the perpetual cycle of war between the Muslim world and the Christian world, that is an outlier. And it hasn't done anybody any good.
It's not really a story of the oppressed and the oppressor either. It's a story of two areas of the world with a lot of power in their own right, having a conflict back and forth.
Yeah.
Which is not the same thing, right? Like, is when you have the oppressed and the oppressor, you have a very different dynamic than two powerful states. And two powerful groups. And I think what makes the Narn revenge so interesting in this context is that they have become a powerful state in their own right. They're not in the League of Unaligned Worlds. They're their own power with their own ambassador. The Centauri Empire has been dead for over a century. This is the point at which the story that the Narn tell themselves has become, we will take back our empire. It's not right when they gain freedom. And I think that's actually much more reflective of how Israel is acting right now, right? Is like anti-Semitism is genuinely a very strong, very persistent form of oppression globally. Like actually globally. Like there's anti-Semitic propaganda being spread in Chinese. Like it's out there. And so the bad actors in that society, given power and telling themselves the story that we have always been oppressed, which is to a large degree true, it becomes very easy to spin that story and say, and now we have the power to take it back. Mm-hmm. Bad actors taking over a narrative can change the way that an oppressed people or previously oppressed people interact with the world. And I think we are going to see that in the show too, of like how the Narn are being led has a really big impact. What stories they tell themselves has a really big impact on international politics.
Or intergalactic.
Nations being whatever they are in this context.
Yeah. And I think one of the elements that we see, because we talked about some of the elements that we see in the Centauri culture, and I think in the Narn culture, I love that we don't really have I did a whole video about the aesthetics of the two, but we don't really have a specific one that it pulls from, but there's a lot of ideas in sort of the natural colors and the natural fibers, inspiration, the metal, and there's definitely some inspiration, I think, taken from indigenous people and African people. But also there's a Grecian element too. In some of the, shapes, I think, that they have in the clothing, which is,
I'll have to look for that. I've not thought about it before.
Yeah.
I did notice the statues that Londo has in his room that are like, those look like Hellenistic votives more than anything else. The little like hair. They're wonderful. They're like clearly gold plated. They're clearly not gold. They're gold plated.
But also, like, I think there's we see so far we've only seen one Narn. Well, two. We saw the guy.
1 and 0.1. He was definitely in the full makeup, but he was not there for very long.
Yeah, we will get more, and I think there's a more of an equal power dynamic that we see with Narns. Although we did see quite a lot of deference for Jakar from the one guy that we see, but yeah, and then he is at the moment he seems to be a military leader.
One thing that I wanted to bring up is the generic refugees. Refugees, whence exactly? And why were the Narn willing to blow them up?
Well, I think the thing is that the raiders, we don't really know who the raiders are in terms of like what culture they belong to or anything, but we have these nebulous baddies in the raiders, and they just have something telling them when cargo ships are going. So I think they don't realize that the cargo ship in this case actually contains refugees. Schrodinger's refugees. We don't know what refugees from what go to where. I don't know. We just have some damseled people.
I guess then it makes less sense to me why there would be relevant transmissions with this one Narn guy on a raider station.
Oh, that is absolutely out of the ass convenience for the plots. He's just been sitting there recording random transmissions because he's bored and he realizes that he is a plot device. But sometimes you gotta yada yada to get to finish the story, This is a setup for future story stuff, so There is going to be a fair bit of yada yada, I think, in season 1, when J. Michael Straczynski wants to sort of it's not time for that yet.
I want to go back for a minute to Londo's dream.
Oh yes, we haven't discussed Londo's dream yet.
So he implies that this is something that is known to Centauri, that Centauri have these premonitions of their death. And we know that they do have psychics among the Centauri, because in the pilot, there was that whole thing with Jakar being like, the Narns are the only race that doesn't have psychics.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some psi ability that all the Centauri have that is specifically related to how their lives will end, I guess. Which is a fascinating thing to do for an entire race of people. Let's just put it that way. That is wild. And thinking about the implications would be a whole Ursula K. Le Guin novel.
Well, JMS does have this quote at one point that with prophecy, what doesn't come to be fulfilled, prophecy becomes metaphor.
True. People will adjust prophecy to suit their present, however it goes.
Yeah, didn't someone write a book about studying a doomsday cult and like them having like a set date when they believed the world was going to end, but then when that day came and went and the world obviously didn't end, they were like, well, maybe we were wrong about the day. Maybe it'll be later on.
Mm-hmm. It's a well-known phenomenon in doomsday cults.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this prophecy does work as a metaphor as well. It is the relationship of these two guys and these two cultures, is they are strangling each other. And so that brings me to cautious word on them. That they are a dying people. The Narn or the Centauri. Yes. So do we have thoughts on Kosh and his enigmatic bullshit?
I like how this is his only contribution to the episode. He's just here to say beware the Ides of March, and then he bounces.
I love how they do his voice. Like, it sounds like it's coming from the bottom of a well, and it's simultaneously kind of robotic, like he's using a vocoder. And I love the way that the suit looks when he's not in it. Like, what? What is this wire cord thing? Where does his neck go? Oh, wait. He might just be a ball of light. It does seem very possible that he's just a ball of light.
Oh, I was thinking that he was reminding me of a certain French philosopher, because he was just saying he was just giving us a lesson in bioethics. Let them die. They're going to die, let them die. That's biopower. Foucault would be, of course, warning us about that. But yeah. Do I need another fan that says eugenics? Because yeah, that's eugenics. They are dying, let them die. And yeah, I don't know what to say about that, but I just wanted to make a note of that. We have our Mr. Lights and ethereal voice saying that a dying race should be let to die.
Nihilistic eugenicism.
Given the presentation of Kosh and his people, it's very interesting that we have this sort of grand negation. Like, this is not what you expect in this moment, which I think is why it's there. Trying not to rest too much on things that haven't come up yet.
Yeah, we don't need to delve too deep in it. It's a thing to notice. We are noticing the attitude.
Let's just say they're no angels.
So, anyone got any more thoughts?
I just cannot get over the almost tension of Ivanova and Talia. Is like that's clearly never going to be a thing because Susan is actively going to stay away from Talia. But like it feels like the setup to a romance in the same way that like Garrick and Bashir did. It feels like the start of a romance. And then it just that backstory just cuts it off.
What a backstory.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a speech to give, which I think Claudia Christensen does beautifully. We will learn more about the Psychor, as was said, but this is a world with psychic people in it. And they are raised by an institution. And the person who was raised by that institution doesn't see herself as a victim. It's very hard to say anything about Psycho without spoiling. But it's just, and we will hear more about Susan and her mother, and it's so tragic, and it's so, it just, I already love her immediately for everything she is, but also the fact that she is all of that after having a childhood that was so tragic and sad and so unnecessarily, yeah.
You know what's fascinating though? Is that she went into the military after that.
Yeah.
You'd think she'd be extremely wary of strong hierarchy.
Although, military, one of the things that people like who go to the military like about the military often is that the rules are very clear and the hierarchy is very sort of, it's all on the surface and it's all up front and there, it's a structured world. There's a clear path to promotion and power. And I can see someone with a childhood that was chaotic wanting order.
Or having no power, like, watching someone they love be taken away from them piece by piece and being powerless to stop it, joining an organization where power is achievable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm less sympathetic to the military than I think most people are.
Oh, I have no love for the military whatsoever. I'm just trying to see it through her eyes. And I don't think that the show...
I mean, I know a lot of people go into the military for safety, essentially. And for control over their lives and for support because it will give them a guaranteed career and education. But I have a real hard time with it.
I think it's probably easier as a Canadian for me to have a little bit more of a, but I've known a number of folks who found structure and comfort in the Canadian Armed Forces. And I'm not going to die. I can see how they find that. I think it would be less appealing in a country that went to war more often.
It's a lot easier to sympathize with the people in the military right now than it has been for me previously, and also a lot less easy to sympathize with people in power.
Yeah, because Zylla, you and I are from... Yeah, because Zylla, you and I are from a country where, people are duped into joining the military, essentially. They're given all these promises of like, your country will take care of you. You'll be given free education, free health care. It's like, you'll never have to worry about anything again if you give your limited time on this earth and your body and your soul to the military. And then they do it, and then they find out that they were sorely tricked.
Sure, you'll have free health care if you can argue with your local chapter long enough to get some resources, and they probably don't have any. And
Yeah, the
sure,
bureaucracy
you might
at
get an
like
education, maybe.
yeah, the bureaucracy at like every VA hospital that I've heard of is absolute dog water, and
Yeah,
the pittance
there's no
they give
funding.
you, the pittance they give you to supplement your educational fund is ridiculous.
Not enough for
But-
anything.
But even in this fictional version, we do see a somewhat of a separation between the military personnel and the civilian government that is overseeing them.
And we definitely do, at least in this episode, get a sense that the civilian government is more concerned with their own political ambition than with what's on the ground, which is propaganda.
Yeah, that's why the ending is like, the Narns did a war crime, but they're going to basically get away with it scot-free because Earth can't get involved.
Nobody wants to get involved. It
Because
wouldn't be
Earth
political.
can't get involved on the eve of the election.
Yeah. And once again, the farming colony gets screwed.
But I was thinking of how different that separation of the leadership from the military is from Starfleet. Starfleet, of course, is not a military. In quotes, it just operates like one in so many ways. But we see a lot of admirals, but only in Discovery. And we will at one point we will meet the president of Earth in DS9, but very rarely do we see any kind of do we interact with the civilian structure, and we don't get a sense of how exactly Starfleet works in that sense. It just kind of does, and it's also generally presented as pretty altruistic, apart from the frequent evil admirals who are there to dispense story.
Yeah, this reminds me a lot more of Stargate, where you have the purely military operation and then the senatorial oversight occasionally interfering, usually to no good.
Mm-hmm. It is more grounded in the reality of our world in a number of ways, even though it has some pretty fantastical stuff like human telepathy. But yeah, the line that stuck out: ignore the propaganda, look at what you see. I love that as a embodiment of telling us a bit about Sinclair's character, but also kind of a thesis for the show, like telling us as watchers to focus on what we see, not necessarily what people say.
Is this where the subtext fan comes out again?
Oh, yes. What I should have had the subtext fan out for was also the whole thing with the Psychor and telepaths. Oh boy, do we have some queer coding on that one.
Yeah. I was reminded of the plight of Alan Turing, how he was forced to take castrating drugs that essentially drove him to take his own life because he was so miserable.
Mm-hmm. Or people who are being refused, on the opposite side, being refused medication that would help keep them alive, keep them from people who are losing themselves and their ability to survive because they're being denied the hormones and other affirming care they need. This is not a drugs are bad thing. This is a forcing people to repress parts of themselves is monstrous.
In a real world connection, understanding the genocide against trans people that is underway. There's a hospital in Texas opening up a detransition clinic for children. There is no positive use case for this. It is a torture device.
There are no words for how monstrous that is. And I think this, we see the trauma that this has inflicted on Susan, the generational trauma of losing her mother, and her mother losing herself. And this is a lesson for the future. It is. I mean, I think obviously this was intended as a parallel to queer folks, in specifically to gay people in the in the 90s when it was written. When the AIDS was the epidemic and didn't need to be, except that people weren't getting the treatment that they needed. Here now, a generation later, we are seeing this now has a whole different meaning for a different group of people, but it is the same mechanisms of oppression. Yeah, and that is something that I think we see throughout this episode. Themes of cycles of oppression and the legacy of oppression, the legacy of pain, because we have the legacy of the Centauri oppression of the Narn. The Narn are now repaying that on others, and blood is crying out for blood, and we're doing the whole thing. And also, they're also harming others by supporting the raiders. We're setting up for some stuff on Earth, perhaps, because Earth wants to be for Earth. There may be some cycles there, and we've got the cycles of the pain that was inflicted on Susan, and the way it's blocking her from having any kind of friendship with Talia, and it's cycles and cycles and cycles. Yeah.
And an interesting opposition to the setup of the Earth-Minbari conflict and the very weird take that Sinclair has, that the Minbari never fight without honor. That is a very weird one there.
Well, that's his perception, that they don't do sneak attacks.
People are not monoliths like that.
No.
Are we doing the hinting game? I love the hinting game.
I think we've done a few of them throughout, but also, yeah.
I was actually just thinking back to Sara's comment that the Minbari are Asian coded and thinking about samurai stereotypes.
Mm-hmm. But also, I think there tends to be a dominant sort of narrative of each culture. Not just and I don't mean narrative as in the storytelling, but the narrative people have about themselves and their cultures. Sure. Which are, of course, half bullshit, half aspiration, but it is what it is, and it does tell you something about who a people are. And the Minbari aspire to not be the kind of people who make sneak attacks. Whether that is actually who they are, that is up, we shall see, but that is who they aspire to be.
I'm reminded of the claim that Vulcans from Star Trek don't lie, which in itself is a lie. And when you challenge them on that, when you call them out for lying, they're like, I did not lie. I exaggerated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Minbari never use sneak attack.
Open my wrist.
They just, there was just an assassin last time. The pilot.
With a shape-shifting device.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like he's choosing to say like broadly it's not them, and this, this attack is not the work of like a lone gunman kind of thing.
That's true. That's true. I just thought it was a very strangely framed remark.
Yes. Well, all right. Well, before we do favorite parts, I have a couple comments from our listeners.
Oh, goody.
So this is from the emissary, from a watcher. I am a white guy, but my dad died when I was a young teen during the second season of DS9. I really connected to Ben and Jake's relationship. It's one of my favorite father-son relationships next to Peter and Walter from Fringe. My dad also has mental health issues. I can't wait to see how the podcast progresses. Well, thank you. Yes, we had said we wanted to hear from people who had experiences that we don't have, and I think that although the loss of a parent may be something that Ren has some knowledge of, but I think the fact that Avery Brooks was aiming to present a good father model for his own culture doesn't mean that it didn't also land for a lot of other people.
I lost my father about 10 years ago myself, and it's one of the things that I love to see is representation of good fathers and good parenting. So I hear you.
And I had a much more complicated relationship with my own father, and I think it's good to have these kinds of stories because it shows what a father should be, which I think we need more examples of.
Yeah. My dad's still around. We have a complicated relationship. Although in many ways I admire who he is as a person, but he wasn't able to be this kind of a father, certainly. And I think that's part of why I resonate with watching Cisco as a dad. Is he is kind of the dad we all wish we had. Yeah. And I think, and maybe just more of our dads and future dads need to have had the opportunity to watch Cisco to know how to do it.
Of course, the ones that need the advice are the least likely to take it. So,
well, you never know. We also had a comment on Blue Sky from Yum Yum Podcast. We can't wait to hear all about Dylan's cool rings. Of course, referring to the Gathering. We didn't actually discuss that that bit with Dylan having the weird murder rings.
Cabinet full of rings.
There's definitely a thing that was dropped in the series. But I mean, spoiler, I guess. But yeah, we didn't. Sorry, we didn't cover the murder rings. But thanks, Yum Yum Podcast. Thanks for following us. They have also done a Babylon 5 watch, so folks should check them out. They're rather fun. Oh yes, I thought so. Yes, Discord. From William. I'm from Denmark, but I actually once saw Avery Brooks in a play, and he really was phenomenal. I just didn't know who he was at the time, as I hadn't watched Deep Space Nine then. I was living in Boston for 6 months in 2001, and I went on a weekend trip to see more of the US. I went to Washington, D.C. in October on my own. It was a bit hard to know how to spend my evenings traveling as a woman alone. One evening I went on a moonlight tour of the monuments and then went past a theater and saw that they were putting on the complete Oedipus plays with an all-black cast. And as a student, you could get very cheap tickets, only you weren't guaranteed a seat. But if there were free ones, you could sit down. And she sent us an image of the playbill. And yeah, that looks pretty awesome. Avery Brooks. It was really amazing. They say the costumes and sets were all inspired by African history, and the actors were so good. When I watched Deep Space Nine for the first time a few years ago, I kept having a nagging feeling I had seen Avery Brooks before. It took some digging to figure it out, but he really must have made an impression for me to recognize him more than 20 years later. Yeah, it would be amazing to see him act live.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, and to see him as Oedipus, which I think is what the playbill was of.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, that is a role that requires some real chops, and he has them.
Yeah, he has got gravitas. And I was saying in reply to them that I have actually have an audiobook of Roots that he read that I listen to periodically, and it is so good because he's just, of course, he's the right person to read that book. So, yeah. So that is our comments. Please keep comments coming. We love to hear from
see
you.
them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We love to have you with us.
Yeah.
And I hope we're I hope you're enjoying us so far, but it is time now for favorite parts.
Well, personally, my favorite part was, Sinclair had to walk a fine line in this episode. He had pressure coming at him from all sides, like, don't get involved, keep the peace, blah, blah, blah. But in the hydroponics bay or whatever you call it, that's when he reveals what he really thinks. And the actor's delivery, like, really, really was really good there. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. That's not what I wanted to pick, but the just going back to Jakar's vision of the children playing on bone flutes. Wow.
That is evocative.
Yeah. I think my favorite is probably actually the introduction of Veer. Veer just bumbles right into screen, doing his job as best he can with his little heart on his large sleeve.
Have you met by a diplomatic staff? This is it.
Exactly. It's like Londo's complete dismissal of him and his very urgent need to be taken seriously. And Veer is so wonderful. Y'all, I love Veer so much.
I am torn because I love Susan's delivering her story, but to be honest, it's drunk Londo. It's so delightfully, he's so delightful. And I think particularly the moment where he's like, the council can go to hell. This can go to hell. You can go to hell too. I wouldn't want you to feel left out. It is just like, it's so fun to do the accent, and I know I don't do it very well, but I don't care. It's fun. It's just this made up nowhere accent.
I have to say, like, despite the very silly character design and costume and wig and prosthetics and voice, Peter Jurassic gives Londo a lot of gravitas. It's admirable, really.
That is the genius of Londo. This is the thing I'm going to come back to. The genius of Londo. He is utterly buffoon ridiculous, and yet
he is tragic.
One of the deepest, there is depths to this character that we will get into. Both Jurassic and Androckitis are just phenomenal. But it is like the way that they managed to play Jakar as this scary, threatening guy, and Londo as this utter buffoon, and no one here is exactly what they appear. But like, yeah.
I mean, I think Ivanova is exactly what she appears to be.
Nah, she's even more awesome.
Well, I was gonna say, like, she's a complete and total badass, and we just haven't seen all of it yet.
I will say she's one of those characters that, like, you know, she hides her vulnerability a lot.
And yet, by hiding it, she sort of, like, presents it in the sort of interesting ways.
It's the Streisand effect.
I was reminded of I was listening to a podcast, In Bed with the Right. They talk about a lot of gender issues and stuff. It's fascinating. But they were discussing Marilyn Monroe recently. They did an episode on her that was really fascinating. And Moira Donegan, who was doing the presenting, she was saying, they were talking about Some Like It Hot, and she was saying that Marilyn really didn't like the role of Sugar. She really didn't want to be playing these dumb blondes. But one of the things that I love about that film is that while Sugar appears to be this flighty, dumb blonde, blah, 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 there is something deeply, she plays her with such pathos and such deep sadness that it makes the character, you know, just so endearing. And it's like, and it's such a shame she didn't enjoy playing the character, but like the fact that I think she didn't want to be playing what it was written as is one of the things that makes it so amazing. But like it's like in that instance, the writers weren't writing depth intentionally, the actor just gave it. But in this, JMS, I believe, intending a lot of depth, and also, you know, the performance is just bringing, but also, and the same with Claudia Christensen, as with Londo, there is huge depths and vulnerability and so much in the performance. I love this show.
Would never guessed, considering the way you begged me to watch it for years.
Was I wrong?
No.
Yeah, Josh described it as that I was doggedly determined to make, or doggedly persistent, was it? Something like that. And then I am to make my friends watch the things. But was I wrong?
That remains to be seen. No, I'm kidding. It's good. It's good. I like it. I like it so far.
All right. So that is us for now on Midnight on the Firing Line. Join us in 2 weeks. We will be back with DS9 talking about A Man Alone. So, from two men at each other's throats to A Man Alone. Interesting. So, where can folks find you?
Well, as always, you can find me here on YouTube as Ren the Barbarian. You can also find me on Blue Sky and Tumblr as Ren the Barbarian. Zilla?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Zyllas Athenaeum, also on Twitch, Blue Sky, and Mastodon as @Zillable. That's syllable but with a Z. And occasionally other places that are easier to find if you follow me on one of those.
And I am Sara Ezzat. I make the Vat Culture Critic videos on YouTube. You can also follow me on Blue Sky, and you can follow the podcast on Blue Sky and Tumblr, as Ren's running the Tumblr, and you can email us, or you can email us at 9to5sci-fi-pod, and you can find us on Patreon if you'd like to support us, which we would very much appreciate. And we have tiers from $1 to out to $10, which would get your name. I will say your name in the credits. So yeah. So thank you to everybody with that, and yeah, with that, we will sign off. Live long and prosper.
No boom today, boom tomorrow. There's always a boom tomorrow. Sooner or later, boom!
9 to 5 is produced by me, Sara Ezzat. Editing duties are shared between me and Ren, and our wonderful theme music is made by Samantha Duke.
It was
All
kind
right.
of funny. We got a picture of him later, and he did have a chin.
It's just a mouth that turns into a neck.
I mean, it's sort of
That's what people say about McConnell.
It's one of
So.
those things they say about the aristocracy about them being all chinless.
Mm.
Despite the Habsburg chin is. I'm thinking that maybe this is something developed around the Habsburg chin, because that is something.
Well, personally, as someone with multiple chins, I felt insulted.
I didn't really.